Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Jenny Ward from PPM Works, and today we are presenting a webinar on Power BI, making your report look professional. As I said, I'm Jenny Ward. I've been with PPM Works a couple of years now, and Power BI, I'm not going to lie, is one of my favorite things. So I'm really happy to share some of my knowledge with you today. The agenda for today's webinar will be, we're going to go through opening the content pack. Microsoft Project provides a really fantastic pre-made project online content pack of various very useful reports that can be downloaded from the Microsoft Store. However, you can also download a copy of those yourself, and we'll talk about the benefits of doing that. We'll talk about general style settings in the environment. We will go through how we can make the format painter your best friend. It's something that I use constantly when I am doing my final touches of styling the reports. So we'll go through that. We'll talk about formatting fields also, not just formatting visualizations themselves, but formatting fields so they appear the way we want them to. That will include numbers and date fields so that we can change the appearance of those. We'll talk about accessing Project Online images. Project Online itself comes with myriad images that are available for your use. If you've ever used graphic indicators as Project Online custom fields, you'll be familiar with some of these from seeing them in the drop-down lists for graphical indicators in lookup tables. But we can actually reference those images in Project Power BI reports and make the reports look a lot nicer. And then finally, we'll end with a Q&A session. So let's get started. I am a senior PPM specialist here at PPM Works. I'm always horrified to say that I've been in IT for 20 years now. My priorities are taking problems and making them into solutions. I really like solving puzzles and getting to the root of problems. And I really appreciate design also. So that's why I really enjoy Power BI, because it's the perfect marriage of kind of problem solving and getting data to be analyzed and displayed the way we want it to. But then also with that, the side benefit of being able to make things look the way you want them to look. So that's why I'm excited about this session today. Our philosophy at PPM Works is honesty, integrity, and dedication. I feel really fortunate to work on a team of really, really dedicated employees and friends. And so we work really well together. We really prioritize client needs and providing a trusted experience. We listen first so that we better understand the needs of the client. We use proven methodology. My bosses have a long history with Project Online, and we offer competitive pricing as well. We have many solutions that are kind of prepackaged. Our Project Online Quick Start is a good example. But we have many different solutions that we offer, including data warehouse, report packs. We can customize the content pack, as we're going to be demonstrating today. We also integrate our environment with Office 365 apps, so we're utilizing Microsoft Flow very often. Planner, we have a Planner integration hub that we utilize. Lots of different options and services available to you. The learning objectives today for this webinar is that you're going to be able to gather tips and tricks and techniques for making Power BI reports look professional. I know that when I was first starting to use the Project Online and Power BI environment, I knew how to do the basics. I knew how to get the data into the environment, and I knew how to create relationships between tables so that I could slice and dice. That'll be one of my favorite expressions today, slice and dice the data. As easily as possible and efficiently as possible. But the thing I struggled with that when I compared what I was creating to reports that I'd find online, I think, oh boy, mine just looks like it was made by a 12-year-old rather than by, insert my very young age here. So I really found that the content pack was one of the best learning tools I could find, because there were many aha moments I had when I first opened that content pack and saw the way that Microsoft and the developers at Microsoft laid out the visualizations on the report. So we're going to go through the basics, understanding the format map panel and its features. Like I said, make use of the Project Online content pack. We're going to learn to save time with the format painter. So once we get one visualization working perfectly, we're going to be able to kind of use that format painter as a good cheat tool so that we can copy those styles to all the other visualizations with some caveats. We'll go through those. We're going to understand the way to format your numbers and dates as well. That's some cool tricks that we can show you. Lots of different options there for dates and numbers. And then we'll use an indicator table. We have some built-in ones that we'll make use of on the content pack. And that will show us how we can make use of existing images that reside in Project Online. So just to kind of, as I say it, check some boxes. This webinar presumes that you have already worked a bit in Power BI Desktop and know your way around. Just in case you haven't, don't worry, you can get Power BI for free here. It's just an easily downloadable free application. You can connect to the OData. You can connect to OData in your Project Online environment with a particular path, but today we're just going to focus on downloading that content pack. We're going to download it from GitHub, so we'll show you where to get that and what you'll see once you download it. If you have already started working with Power BI, I'd like you to kind of keep these questions at the back of your mind. What are your current challenges? And when you run into something you don't know, where do you go for information? Is Google or Bing your friend? Do you know how to Google and what exactly the question should be? You know, sometimes my dad will call me with questions on the computer, and it's something that I simply just need to Google. But the thing that we should not make light of is that if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, it's sometimes hard to know what to ask and what to search for in Google. So Microsoft Docs is your friend with that. Microsoft Docs has some incredible Project Online resources. I mean, they do for all of their apps, but Microsoft Docs is a really great source. So I encourage you to go there, create a membership, it's free, and you can get literally all the answers you need. There's not one question that I've asked in Project Online or Power BI that I haven't at least found someone else asking, if not also finding the answer to that question. So let's start by going through our demo. We're going to really focus on demo rather than webinar, rather than PowerPoint presentation on this webinar. So let's take a look at the content pack. First of all, the content pack can be accessed via this link. You'll be able to have access to this PowerPoint presentation after this. But if you simply just Google GitHub download to Project Online content pack, I assure you it will be the first hit, because that's how I find it every time. I don't have this as a saved link. I just simply Google it every time. Like I said, knowing what to Google is as important as actually finding the answer. We're going to use it as a learning tool about how the report was laid out. And once you download the template, you're going to be able to click on it and open it. So it will go to whatever. I save mine to my standard download folder. But this will be the 3 files that get downloaded. We're simply going to click on this Project Online Power BI content pack. As you can see, it's a Microsoft Power BI desktop template. That means it's a PBIT file, not PBIX, which is the file once it's saved. It's a template file. And then once you do, you'll be prompted for this, for your Project Online PWA URL. So this will be where you actually just put in the link that you need in our environment. You can save this. I'm going to drag this over here. I have this saved so that I can reference it. So I'm going to copy this now. okay? And when we go over to GitHub, this is what the download page looks like. You're going to click the clone or download here. It will go through downloading the file. And then once you have it downloaded, it will look like this, as mentioned, in your folder, okay? So here's the one I've downloaded just yesterday. This is where I've saved my demo that I'm going to show you. So my screenshot looks a little bit different, but here is the template. So we're going to click on that template to open it. It will automatically open Project and Power BI for us. It's opening on my other monitor, so I'm going to click and drag it over to here. Maybe. I'm going to have to open it on this monitor because it's being difficult. I'm going to drag this over, and then I'm going to go and open it back to that recent files, to my downloads, content pack here. And we've got it here. Okay, so now we're going to get to the data, and that will be where we connect to the sources. If I look in recent sources here, you can see if I have the whole list of environments that I have set up. But you're going to get this prompt right here, which I've already gone through. You're going to enter your PWA site URL, and then you're going to click load. And once you do that, then you're going to see this. So this is the content pack in its desktop form, okay? When you look at the content pack in the server setting, in the Power BI service, it will be only online. It will be just an app that you load, just like that screenshot I showed you. You put in the PWA URL, and it will send you where you need to go. And the difference will be that you're not going to have access to the query editor. You're not going to have access to all of the tables that are referenced. So just to give a basic overview of what we're looking at here, these are all the different report pages that you can see here. Okay, all different kinds of, this one's a good one with resource availability heat map. This is showing from our project online demo environment. So these are all test projects. You can see we have Goal Lab, MedStrong, wastewater refinement plant, some of my colleagues' names here to which they are assigned. We've got counts of different projects and so forth. These are all built-in different visualizations within a page. Now, first and foremost, when you first put a table onto a page, if we want to bring in, I'm just going to show you real quick, if you want to bring in project name and project duration, okay, we can get these values right here on the page, okay? This is one visualization that's on the page, as opposed to if we look at some of these pages, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 visualizations on this one page. This was my first aha moment that I had with Power BI, because not only are there this many visualizations on the page, but they overlap. See if I highlight this visualization here, it's actually overlapping these top ones, but we have it aligned so that it's sent to the back, so that these slicers up here, as they're referred to, on the top, overlap this, so that all of this white space and this bar is hidden, okay? So then it just looks like it's nice and cozied up to these images on the top and these slicers on the top. You know, you might have a logo over here. You might have different color bars that are appearing here, whatever you like. But you can only get the images so close to the top. So see, there's going to be this automatic white margin that happens here, but this is snuggled all the way up to the top, okay? So the first lesson is that all of these visualizations overlap one another, and there are many different types of visualizations per page. That's step one in making the report look professional, okay? So we're going to look at the different visualization types, okay? If I select this one here, you can see that as I click on them, I'm selecting different ones. And then in the visualization panel, that's what this is called up here, you see there are different types. Now I can change this to a different type. Right now it's a stacked column chart. If I wanted to change it to a, we'll hover on it again so you can see the name, clustered column chart, I could do that. In this case, personally, I think that the stacked column chart looked better. So I'm going to go back to that view, okay? If we wanted to change it to a pie chart instead, we could do that. We happen to have a lot of blank values in our environment, but you know, if you like pie, like I do, that might be the one to use, but we can revert back. If we do this, Control Z, like in any environment, is always available. You can undo what you just did. I just hit Control Z on my keyboard. There are different area charts. There are donut charts. There are tree maps. That one is really interesting and colorful. It might be a little bit too much information. Scatter charts. That one doesn't really display a lot of valuable information in that particular visualization. The same with the waterfall chart. I think those are kind of hard to interpret. And the line graph. So we'll go back to the stacked bar graph here, and that's what the stacked column chart rather, and that's what was in the environment already. But the point is that once you create these visualizations and get the data in there that you need, then you can try out different visualizations to see what looks best and works best. The key is not only that it's attractive, but it's that it's depicting the data in the way that you need and want to see it and want your users to see it, okay? So we've got several different panels here. Right now, we're on the fields panel, okay? So that's where we can see not only the specific fields that are pulled into these visualizations, but we can also see the filters that are applied on these, okay? So on the group filter here, you see we've got a couple that are undefined. We have operations is one, and blank is mostly all of them, 28 of them. So if I select blank here, the visualization will modify to take out the other ones that I had in there. If I want to see only operations, then I can do that. If I want to see only undefined, I can do that. If I want to see all, I put select all back on. You can see that I can do kind of all or nothing here is what the option is, or I can specifically choose the ones I want. Okay, but by default, it's going to be set to select all. Right now, I do have it set to select all, but I have it set that way based on clicking all of those. If I want to just clear that filter, there's a nice little eraser on each of these filters that'll appear. You can see this one has no filter on it, so there's no eraser there. So I'm going to click on the eraser, and that's going to clear the filter and leave it back to all. Okay? There are different types of filters that are available in the environment. There is the visual level filter. That is to say, these filters right here are only going to apply to this particular visual that I have selected. If I switch to this visual, you can see that the visual level filters have shifted to different values because there are different fields in this visualization. Okay? Then there are page level filters that will apply to everything on the page. So these are specified, so we're eliminating any local generic resources here. This is already what the default resources were set to. And then we have a time period here of all of 2018, time January 1st, 2018 to 12/31/2018. Okay, so lots of different options here for filters. You can also set, we don't have any on this, but report level filters rather than just the visual level filters applying to one visualization, the page level filters applying to one specific page. I'm on the resource availability page now. As you can probably imagine, the report level filters will apply to all pages within the report. So if you had a report and you always, no matter the scenario, wanted to exclude test projects, we in our environment make a habit of beginning test projects with ZZ so that they're easily filtered out. I could drag the project name field to report level filters, and I could exclude anything that begins with ZZ across all pages of the report. So we went through the content pack, we opened it up. Now we've started a little bit talking about general style settings. We're going to look now at the actual format panel, which is available via this, looks like a little Sherwin-Williams paintbrush here, okay, or a paint roller. All right, so let's switch back to that now. We'll go here, and we're going to go into a more basic table here. I'm going to go into this one right here, okay? So now this is a table that we're in, okay? More like the view of an Excel spreadsheet. This is not really showing any dramatic colors. You can have formatting on it. This is an example of the heat map. So this too is a table. This one's actually a matrix, so that's a tiered table is what a matrix is. But these have conditional formatting options set to them, so that's why you have these much more attractive colors on here. But if we go back to just this kind of more basic table here, we'll take a look at the format panel. So within the format panel, you have different sections. Depending on what type of visualization, you'll have different sections available here. You have the General tab, and this one, amazingly enough, is probably the one I use just as much as any other one, particularly for X and Y positions. The reason for that is if I create one slicer here, and then I want to ensure that this slicer lines up with it, see how I can see that my Y position is 0 here? That's going to be the top bottom position on the page, the Y axis. And then you can see that the X position is shifting. So we've got this one at 280, this one at 530, this one at 780, this one at 1030, but the Y position remains the same. So that's ensuring that all of these are aligned. Unfortunately, not yet in Power BI do we have the option to align objects like we do in PowerPoint, for instance. We see new updates all the time. I'm hoping that that's one that will come soon because it sure would be helpful and fast, but not available yet. So if we go back here to these, we can see that the general ones here are still set the same way here. We can control the width and the height here. I am going to now go to the style. I never change this style setting because I like to use the default setting and then I customize the style myself. You can, however, set different ones. There are ones that are already built in, alternating rows, for instance. You've got this one with bold header. Sometimes they'll change and sometimes they won't. This one's minimal. You can see that the color on the header bar went away. Sparse is similar, no alternating rows. This one is a higher contrast, alternating rows. Condense squishes it up a little bit more if you have a lot more information that you need to get into there. Flashy rows, that's an interesting one. It's going to use some of the colors in the theme that are already being used. But you know, you're certainly welcome to do those, but if you want to customize to your liking specifically, then we'll set it to the default value. The grid options will allow us to turn the vertical grid on or off. You can see that these lines appeared in between. Once I turn those on, they disappear again once I turn it off. Horizontal grid is already on. I can turn that off. Because this has alternating rows already, that really doesn't show up that much because you know you've already got the alternating rows that are making that distinction. Here's where you can change the outline color. Here is what this refers to, this kind of teal color here at the top. If I wanted to change that to orange instead, I could. Okay. This is where you might want to pick a color that is good for your logo. I'll share another piece of information I have here that I use a tool called HTML color codes. And what I do is I upload files. And if I go to logos here and I upload our PPM Works logo, then the beauty of this is that what I can do is I can click here on the orange and it gives me the color code for that orange. If I don't want the orange, maybe I want this kind of pea color, whatever you call it. See if we can get that in there. There you go. So that's going to bring up that color. Or the teal. Let's pick the orange shade here, okay? So I'm going to copy this now and I'm going to go back into my environment here, and I'm going to go to outline color. And then we've got all these pre-made choices. It just so happens that this theme, you know, this is not by accident, but our color scheme is very similar to what this environment is with the teals and the kind of corally orange colors. But if I wanted to put in a custom color, I click custom color, and then that's where I put in that new color that I just selected. It's more of kind of a yellowy orange there. And then I'm going to click enter, and that's going to update it. Now, you can see now that this is part of the recent colors. Okay, you can, if you hover on it, you see what that color name and number is. All right, let's do this, and let's go to resource assignments. And let's say we want to change the color of this header. All right, I'm going to go into the header for this. Slicer header title here. See how the custom color is available here? Okay. That is not always the case. Sometimes you'll find when you switch to a different view, the color that you just created is not going to be available there. The trick to getting past that is that if we went back to the overview, which one was it? Resource assignments that I was just in. Here we go. The trick to get that back on the selector, it's going to sound so silly, but what you're going to do is you're going to go into the color where you used it. I'm going to click this down a little bit more so I can see it. And you're simply going to click on the color again. You're not going to change the color. You're just going to select that color again, and that's going to force it to go back into that recent colors list. Okay, that's just a cute little jury rig trick that I learned a few weeks ago, so it's really handy. Okay, so we've changed these colors now. So that shows the options for the grid. Column headers, you know, you can change the font colors there. You can put the outline on them. The auto size column width is there. You can decide whether you're going to let it expand based on the width of the title. All kinds of different options here. You can have word wrap turned on or off, so that if I were to shrink this a little bit narrower, we've got that turned on. Let's see if it works. This should wrap around to the next row once we do that. Select that visualization again. So you always have to make sure, as you just noticed, if I click someplace else, then this changes, because these styles apply to these visualizations. So you need to make sure that you're actually clicking in the visualization, okay, before you make your style changes. Otherwise, you might be changing the wrong visualization when you're trying to change the styles, okay? If we go a little further, you can see you can actually change properties on the values themselves. Depending on the kind of visualization you've got, sometimes you can pick specific values so that you could see the actual field names, and I could change the properties of this field name compared to this one if you wanted to make one more prominent than the other. You can turn totals on or off for these. That just allows you to show the auto sum on the bottom of the rows. I highly, highly, highly encourage you to create a table that you're never going to need, a report that you're never going to need to share with anybody else, and just click wildly on all of the different options that you've got here, because the world is your oyster. There are so many things that you can do here with changing font colors, background colors. You can change the alignment on things if you want things to be centered. See, now they're centered here. That doesn't really work, so we want to go back to left there because that makes much more sense visually. It's easier on the eyes. You want to try to imagine what people are going to need and what they're going to want to configure. Okay, so let's take a look back at our presentation now. So we're looking at the format painter. Like I said, different types of visualizations will contain different style features and settings. So you want to make sure that you're just trying all of these out based on the visualization that you're in. Change the colors on a pie chart to specific colors or colors that match your company theme or logo. You can add your logo to the top of the page, and then that will make a more consistent visual across the pages. Okay, now we've changed some styles. So let's go in and actually change one on our slicers, and then I'll show you how that works. So this happens to be the kind of, I'll say it, I think it's ugly. This really green color is very prominent and strong. And so that's set here in the background of this, okay? So let's change this to a turquoise color instead, okay? Now, we want to change that same style here, but we're going to change a couple of things on this intentionally, okay? So we're going to go to the color right here. It's in a different place than it was on the other one, so we'll set it to the same thing that we just set. But then I want to also increase the transparency on that so it lightens that color a little bit. But then when I go to the title for this one happens to be off because it's the slicer header that's showing what that field name is. But it's kind of, when I make that lighter like that, it's a little bit harder to see. So I'm going to change that to a darker color. Maybe that's not quite what I want to see. Maybe I want it a little bigger. No, I don't really want it a little bigger, but I don't want it as light as it is. So I'm not going to use Sago Light. I'm just going to use the regular version. Okay, so now you can see we've got that changed a little bit. Okay, it doesn't quite match this yet, but we've got this one. All right, this is the way we want it. Well, now I want all of these to look that way too. All right, let's go through all of the steps again. No, you don't have to go through all of the steps again because Format Painter exists here too. So see how it turns into what's kind of a very obnoxious looking paintbrush here? We can click here and it updates that as well. Now, once that's selected again, you need to click it again and here, again and here. Okay? Now, let's see if we have this selected. Can I turn that on? I cannot. So in Excel, you can double click on Format Painter and leave it kind of locked on. You can't do that here, but as you can see now, this was just a label. This isn't a slicer. So what happened here is it did change part of the style. It changed the background color, but it didn't change our font to what we wanted it changed to. So we'll just do that manually here, okay? And we'll change that so that it matches the others. Okay, but as you can see, that's a huge time saver there. I got this one the way I wanted it to look. We could do the same thing here if we wanted to change the header on this. So if we change the column headers to the background color, and we'll do the recent colors. Now I'm not going to be able to select the transparency here, so we're just going to leave it that way for now, just so that this looks a little bit tidier. I'm going to stretch this out so that it's filling the page, okay? And then I don't want the outline at all, so I'm going to turn off that outline, and I'm going to change the font. This time, I am going to change it to the light font instead, okay? And the header, I'm going to go back here in totals, we have that off. Field formatting, we can leave that the way it is. Title we have off. If we turn the title on, we'll see that those will appear, but it's set to no title. Not only do we, when we turn the title on, we need to add a title. So that's why it doesn't appear automatically, okay? This is showing up on the top. I could align that to the left if I wanted it to, okay? It will default to the middle, but I don't really want a title in there at all because it's already clear that this is a portfolio issue list. It's showing the issue name here, the project it's associated to, who the issue is assigned to, due date, and so forth. So you want to ask yourself, how self-explanatory are these? Because that's a big key about whether you need a title on it or not. The title for this page is already present up here, so there's no need for this to show issues list below. It's very clear that that's what this is. So that's another thing that adds to the professionalism of your report, okay? So we've got these resource availability heat maps here, okay? But if we go back to portfolio issues, I'm going to select this visualization. I'm going to select the Format Painter, okay? So then we're going to go here. We're going to hover on this, and I'm going to click it. And it has changed it to the style of the other one. Now, in this case, that was a dreadful mistake because what has happened, we've lost all the formatting. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to hit Control-Z. that it's not going to let me do because I've already clicked somewhere else, but Control Z would revert that to what it was before. So always, never hesitate to use Control Z because it will undo the last step you made. Speaking of which, another very good habit to get into when you're making good progress with style in particular on a report is to save many versions of the report. So as you make a major style change, save webinar demo version 1, webinar demo version 2. No autosave is available in Power BI. You can work from SharePoint Online. It can sometimes be buggy if you do that. So I usually have a local copy of the file that I'm working in, but you want to save frequently, particularly if you're going to be using Query Editor and changing structurally the data, because if you make a mistake, it's always easy to revert to the last version. And then, you know, that clicking wildly and trying to break things, which is the best way to learn, is the way that you're going to be able to accomplish that. So let's go back now to our report, to our PowerPoint presentation here. We talked about the format painter and resetting the style on each one individually, and then getting that to work. Once you get that one perfect, then you use the paintbrush. It does work across pages, although I was not able to demonstrate it. You can undo it once you do it, so fear not, and keeping previous versions will save you if you have the same experience I just did, where you accidentally clicked a couple times too many and then the undo did not work. It works with different visualizations with a few limitations. As we showed you on that slicer, the slicers copy exactly and the style copies exactly, but when we did it on the label, most things changed, but the font color did not change. So I needed to manually do that. So it's not going to be perfect, but it will get you 80% of the way there most of the time, okay? It won't reset things and it won't replicate conditional formatting. So titles you'd need to redo, like we showed, and it won't replicate that conditional formatting as demonstrated when I changed the style of the one that had the pretty colors in the resource utilization view. So now formatting numeric and date fields, okay? When you bring data in over from Project Online, it comes through in many different ways. Okay, if we look at this date field here, this is the due date field. If I select this visualization, then I can see that this is from the issues table, the due date, okay? Another thing I'm going to show you is if we collapse this, and I've got this visualization selected, you can see in yellow over here on the right that this is the only source of data for this particular visualization. So if there's a field on this visualization, it's in this table, okay? So I'm going to expand this table with this little arrow here in the fields menu, and you can see these are all the fields. They're checked in yellow here. These are the ones that are chosen, okay? Due date is the one that's showing here as 3-March-15, okay? Well, what if I like my, my due dates to have kind of a different look to them? What we do is we select the due date field here from the table. So when I say select it, I don't mean check the box. I don't mean click the ellipses. I just mean simply click someplace in the box so that the yellow boundary box goes all the way around it, okay? Then we are going to go to the modeling tab at the top. And as you can see here, the data type is already date time. And the format happens to be, as we see it, it's that the day, the month spelled out, the 3 initials of the month, and the year, okay? So I'm going to click on the drop down for this, okay? And date time will come up. And then once I hover on date time, all of the possible options come up. Well, if I want it to be more consistently 3/14 month, day, year, I can do that. If I want it to be spelled out, I can do that. I have lots of different possible options here, okay? Like we can scroll down. There's many date options from which I can choose. Some people like to ensure that it's going to always be the 6-character date. Sometimes the 8-character date is preferable, okay? The date that was already selected is one that does not have the time in it at all. So we're going to leave it that way. We're not going to set it to time. I'm just going to set it to this one second down the list. And you'll see what happens is these will refresh. We give it just a minute. And then it's showing me that kind of more standard date format. Okay, if you don't want the words in there, you just want the numbers, that would be the way that you change it. So again, to review, you're going to find out what date field it is specifically you want to use. You hover on this so you get what the name and location of the field is. You can see when I hover on this, it shows me it's in the issues table and it's the due date field. I'm going to find that field by expanding the issues table, the due date field. I'm just going to select it. I'm not going to uncheck it because that will make it go away. I'm going to leave it there. Okay, I'm going to go back a couple of steps now so that I undo that mistake that I just made. Okay, so now it's back. I'm going to select due date, and then I'm going to go up to the modeling tab at the top. I'm going to see just below the date time data type is the date time format, and I've switched it to this one that is month, day, day, year, 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 year. Okay. Now the same thing applies to numbers. Let's see if we can find one that just has numbers in it. Okay, so max units here is a good example. So we're going to select this one here. We're going to hover on the max units field here. You can see that this is in the resources table. It is the resource max units field. So let's collapse this one and expand this one. It is the resource max units field. I'm going to select this. I'm already on modeling because that's where I was. The data type for this is a decimal number, okay? But we could say, just for giggles here, we want this to really be currency. So I can go and I can change this to currency. And then what should happen is our dollar signs will appear. See? And then you realize, oh no, that's not really what I wanted to do. Now see, I'm showing another example of something that's not going to let me undo it because that is a change to the data. So we're going to go back and we're going to change that to decimal number, back to decimal number like it was. Okay, so then it's reset. So you want to keep in mind that sometimes when you're doing data changes like that, you're actually changing the format of the number, and that can't always be undone. So you just want to be conscious of that. Okay, so we've changed format and number and numeric and date fields. We've given some quick tips and tricks on that. You go to the modeling tab after you select the field itself, and then you can modify those. Now we're going to talk about accessing the project online images. Okay, so let's go through and open this up. We are going to take a look at the way that things come through, and then what they actually look like when you open it up first in Power BI. Sorry, I'm speaking over myself here. Okay, so let's go to our portfolio dashboard. And on our portfolio dashboard, you can see we have a few columns here that are links, and then a few that are cost, health, work health, and schedule health. These are showing up like this because these are actually references to images that exist in Project Online. So that is to say, if I hover on this, let's see if I can get this to show. When I hover on it, then you'll see that it's actually referencing a PNG image. Okay, so there are paths to each of these images, depending. This one happens to be 6, this one is 2. So they're actual image references that exist in Project Online. What we need to do is we need to, just like we did with the dates and the numbers, we need to change the format of these fields. Okay, so we're going to select, we're going to hover on this to find out where that cost health field is. As we can see, it resides in the projects table, cost health. Okay, so I'm going to expand this, projects. We're going to go to cost health. And then up here, we've got data category is uncategorized. We are going to select this And then we have these options below, web URL or image URL. We're going to change it to image URL. Okay, so unlike the numbers, we weren't controlling the format here. It's still a text field. But when that updates, see how now the image is showing because it's translating it now as an image URL. We'll do the same thing. We'll go to work health. We know that the work health field is in here somewhere, so we'll select that one. We'll change this one to data category image URL. Give that a second. And then the schedule health, we'll select that one as well. And we're going to change that one to image URL as well. Now, what happens sometimes when you make this update here is that these images will, the table will translate that those images are really larger than they are. And so there is somewhere in here a place where you can set the image height. This is one of those that I always have trouble finding myself, but you can shrink the image height down as low as it possibly can go. And then that will shrink the table down so that these will be spaced as they should be. You know, it doesn't always come in properly, but here we go, image height. So it is in the grid section of this table view, because if I increase this, you'll see what happens. This is what it sometimes looks like when you first shift it to that web URL, but you want it to be shrunk all the way down to 20, whatever the smallest is it goes will be the one that accommodates the image. Okay, so we've got one more thing to cover here before we part ways. There's this link also. So Project Online offers the option of the embedded links that will send you to the project workspace. So this is going to this actual project. As you can see, it's our PWA demo environment, and then the actual project name, Architect Series Door. Okay, so this is the project that we're looking at. All right, but it doesn't, we don't really need to see what that link is. We just need it to be clickable. So I'm going to hover on this link. As you can see, it's projects, project site. Okay, so this field is already here. I've got this projects table expanded already. So project site happened to be on my screen already. And much like the images, we're going to do something different. Can anybody guess, though, what it might be? We're going to instead select web URL this time. And then once that refreshes, you can see it's still thinking up here. That will automatically change to this nice little link icon. Okay, so now it's a clickable link. All right, once I click on that, I'm not going to do it because I don't have that environment open, but it will open that website for this particular project. Okay, and it will get you to all the details, all the documents for that project. So those links are super handy. Okay, so we've gone through, we've changed the image URLs, the web URLs, showed how this can translate into this, which is much more attractive, much more professional. They'll come in as uncategorized, and you'll need to change the format to whatever is applicable. So that brings us to the end of our webinar. As I mentioned at the beginning, you know, we're going to go through questions and answers now, but as I mentioned in the beginning, Power BI is really my favorite thing to work in. So I just love being able to answer questions for users. We have blogs out there on our site, and we have some other webinars also on Power BI and the content pack and connecting the content pack to your Project Online environment. We have some users for whom we customize the content pack because not everyone uses all the built-in fields in Project Online. So our services are available for that. We encourage you to reach out to us, but we'll go through some questions and answers in just a minute. I'm just going to go through the calls to actions here. start incorporating these techniques right away. You know, I'm somebody who, if I learn something and I then don't look at it or do it for a couple of weeks, I have a really hard time remembering, oh, what did the teacher say? I know I remember seeing this, but I can't remember where it was. So I encourage you, even right after this webinar, download the desktop app if you haven't already done that, and just start clicking around. You know, pull in data from an Excel spreadsheet if you want to. There's lots of options for pulling in different data sources. You can find all of those answers online, but get right into the environment and start working in it, because that's going to be the way that you're really able to learn and remember and retain the information that we've taught you. We'd love to hear from you, so get in touch with us. You can, we have a location on Newbury Street in Boston, but you can always reach us at info@ppmworks.com and or visit our website at www.ppmworks.com. We have lots of resources there. Like I said, lots and lots and lots of blogs, so you can find lots of information. But with that, let's go into the question and answer section.